If we help one person this year, it's priceless. You can't put a price on someone's life. I know the plight personally of getting out with a sheet of paper, places I need to go, no money, no phone, nowhere to sleep, wondering where I'm going to get my next meal. I got arrested for the first time for a shooting incident when I was 15. You don't realize the ramifications, the ripple effects your addiction is going to have on everybody else. I need to be of service to save my own life. I've got the rest of my life to try to earn a living, but right now, I just need to focus on my recovery. I always say, who better to help men and women like us than men and women like us? I've literally been in your shoes. Your past doesn't have to define your future. Choices that we make today will define our future, and invest in your future self because you're worth it.
You're listening to the Begin Again podcast, where real stories of addiction, recovery, and transformation take center stage. I'm Gary Menkes, and each week we bring you honest conversations with people who chose to stop surviving and start living. These are the stories that remind us healing is possible. No matter where you've been or what you've faced, it's never too late to take your power back. Thanks for being here. Let's begin again. Welcome back to the Begin Again podcast, a space for recovery warriors, comeback stories, and the incredible lives waiting on the other side of alcoholism and addiction. And joining us tonight is a man with an incredible story of resilience and transformation through periods of homelessness and multiple incarcerations. A man who has flipped the script on life, dedicated to helping others. He's the founder of Discovery Cafe and now author of his recently released book. It's titled The Peer Recovery Community Organization: How to Leverage Your Life Experience and Create a New Legacy. He's Gabe Cohen. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks so much. I love your introduction. Recovery warriors, man, that speaks to my heart.
Does, right? I mean, that term, recover out loud, Gabe, I never heard of it before it kind of got here. And now that I'm here, and I think it's such an important movement, if you will. If you heard my story, which maybe I know you mentioned you heard pieces of it. I don't care how you get here. If you need to be here, awesome. AA saved my life. I had some false starts. I was in and out for 4 years, but 19 plus years ago, AA saved my life. And I bring that up because I was sitting in a meeting and I was like, and this is a couple of years ago before I started the show. And I said, man, there's more than this church basement that can benefit to hear these incredible stories, you know? And I came on and realized this amazing community on social media, people getting sober on social media. It's really cool. So Recover Out Loud. Yeah. And they're recovery warriors, right? And we recover out loud so others don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah, I love it, man. And I know we'll get into it, but you had said something earlier, if we can just help one person, right? And of course, we're serving a larger audience now, but I'll never forget when we first opened our, what we call Recovery Community Center, our first Discovery Cafe location. I was leased a classroom at a local college, and I bought 5 leather recliners. I had in like a circle, and just like student tables with some chairs in the middle. We served lunch, and I was sitting there. I had a couple of volunteers, and I was sitting there for, about a month. Nobody was coming in the door. I was going into town and handing out brochures and just getting the word out. We were waiting on our first $50,000 grant. We got the award, but I haven't actually received any of the money yet. And I just remember one of my volunteers saying, like, do you really think somebody's going to come into this room and sit in one of the chairs and we're going to have a meeting? And I said, if we help one person this year, like that's worth 50. It's priceless. It's worth more. You can't put a price on someone's life.
No, you can't. And I think, hats off to you, right? Like, one thing, you're building a business, of course, right? But it's an extra layer of humility of walking around and handing out those types of pamphlets, right? I mean, that's talk about wearing your heart on your sleeve or wide open. Like, hats off to you. But that's what I was saying to you offline. I get to meet these incredible people, man, that flip the script on life. I even put it in your bio there, but they turn around and they find a purpose. They find new purpose. And then the purpose is to help other people not have to go through what you had to go through.
Yeah, I share share the story often. I've been to prison. I was in and out 7 times in Colorado, basically because of my addiction. I was addicted to crack and diagnosed in prison with bipolar, PTSD. They put me on a slew of psych meds, lithium and Seroquel. And, I was in that revolving door. I would get out. 4 of those 7 times I was released homeless. And so I know the plight personally of getting out, with a sheet of paper, places I need to go, no money, no phone, nowhere to sleep, wondering where I'm going to get my next meal. It kind of became like a sick comfort zone. Like I knew how to survive on the streets. I knew how to do that, even though I was miserable. Sometimes I even looked forward to going back to prison. I was trying to figure out like how I could get recovery, I guess. But every time I thought I was all in, I was still holding on to like part of my identity, part of the guy I thought I had to be to survive in that world. And at the end of the day, I was scared and felt insignificant. I would just go back to what I knew, and I was killing myself. So,
Well,
yeah.
the feelings of less than and fear. This is so repetitive. It seems to come up every time, but you write the word fear down when you're doing the work on yourself. And I didn't think I was afraid of anything, and when I started writing that stuff on paper, there was fear next there. I had pages and pages and pages of fear. Didn't realize I was afraid of everything. But Gabe, if you can take us back to perhaps, I don't know, your childhood, what started getting you on the wrong path, so to speak?
Yeah, sure, man. I grew up, as we were talking offline,
Yeah, we're
on
neighbors.
Long Island,
Yeah, Strong
nice.
Island.
I was blessed, man. Suburbia, middle class, a couple blocks from the water. It was beautiful. And, my parents didn't drink, they didn't use drugs, but there was, I had some sexual abuse from people outside of my family as a kid. And I was real young, didn't understand, what all of it. Why I was scared, why I felt less than, why I felt like damaged goods. My grandparents, by the way, they're all Holocaust survivors. So my mom's parents were German Jews and my dad's parents were Hungarian and Polish Jews and escaped, of the Nazis and came to America. So they talk about generational trauma.
Yes, heard that.
I didn't even know what that was till I was in my 30s, but growing up, learning about the Holocaust, and I grew up in a Reform Jewish home, like we weren't religious, but I did have I didn't really know what faith was, but I knew that I believed in my heart there was a God. So that probably saved me down the road. Just growing up, like scared, being abused, growing up, and even though there was no drugs and alcohol, it was a bit dysfunctional. And then the trauma that came, like when my grandparents came, it was like I had to hide like my toy guns. I couldn't wear my camouflage for some reason because I played army, I was a kid in the woods. I had my ninja swords. But I think I grew up like feeling like I needed to be a tough guy because this was a scary world. And if I could learn how to fight and if I could, I don't know, I was always fascinated with weapons, but I think that stemmed from being scared, and started getting high like with 13, smoking marijuana, drinking, did cocaine for the first time when I was 15, fell in love with it. Basically, that was been my drug of choice. Had some friends, some older guys in the neighborhood that were drug dealers that I started clicking up with. And they, in my eyes, they were kind of everything my father wasn't, like big tough guys with gold chains and muscles and Corvettes, and so I wanted to be like them. And I got arrested for the first time for a shooting incident when I was 15. And that was my first, I guess, encounter with law enforcement. Brought great shame upon my mother and father. And that really severed our relationship. And so from there, I was involved with the court system. Basically, I was on probation till I was 18. I was blessed. Nobody got killed, thank God. I'd rather not go into it, but it was stupid. Me and a friend were playing with a gun and somebody got shot. And so, that really just plummeted me into my drug use, really cocaine use, started selling cocaine. I dropped out of high school in 11th grade, was renting a house with some friends, going down to the nightclubs. Knew the bouncers, and I was making the runs back to the house to pick up 8 balls and bring them back downtown. And, and when you're 17 and you have $1,000 in your pocket, at least when I was 17, I had $1,000 in my pocket. I thought I was a high roller, right? I was a baller. And I soon got in way over my head too, by the way. I mean, you're from back east. I got a job at a Gold's Gym, started my introduction to steroids, and met some guys that were doing work, if you will, in Queens. I found myself selling $500 silk dresses out of the trunk of my car in Ozone Park in Jamaica, Queens. That fell off the back of trucks going to Bloomingdale's is what I was told. I learned quickly that you don't ask any questions, right?
Yep, that's right.
The less you know, the better. Started smoking crack, and then everything went downhill, man. I mean, stealing cars, writing bad checks, robbing drug dealers, the whole 9 yards. I have an uncle, I believe he saved my life. He lives in Denver, Colorado, and heard through my mom what I was into. Basically offered me a one-way ticket to Denver. He had a friend in Narcotics Anonymous, and he said, come on out to our house. You could stay with us. The day you come, my friend's going to pick you up and take you to a meeting. But if you relapse, I'm not buying you a ticket to go home. Like, you're on your own, and you can't stay at our house. And really, I was scared. I owed people money, and I'm like, bet, I'll be at the airport tomorrow, right? I'm on that plane. I'm 19 years old. Go out to Denver, Colorado, introduced to Narcotics Anonymous, get a sponsor, start working the steps, until I get to step 4, right? And start looking at some stuff, get a job at a health club, meet a girl. She invites me to a party. I'm 19 years old, full of testosterone. And I go against my sponsor's better judgment. I go to the party. I have a couple drinks because I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a cocaine, right? But I know that I'm not satisfied with a couple drinks, and I have a couple drinks. I alter my thinking. I want to do cocaine. I discover one of the worst streets in Colorado, because I go, like, where do you buy crack? Where does a guy get some crack around here? I go out, I smoke crack, I get kicked out of my uncle's house. So I'm 19 years old. I'm halfway across the country. I'm homeless for the first time. And basically my whole family wrote me off at this point.
Right.
Burned all my bridges. And so I get my first reality check of, this is where addiction can take you. And, there's gangs on the streets of Denver, and I'm a white kid with a chip on my shoulder because I'm from New York, so I'm a tough guy, right? I thought. Then I got checked quick. Started getting my ass kicked, and started my first stints in the city jail, getting picked up with paraphernalia, breaking in the buildings, to sleep in the laundry room when it was cold out, and waking up and someone finding you and calling the cops, getting a trespassing case. I was in and out of the city and county jail like over 25 times for a couple of years, just kind of living on the streets, robbing, stealing to support my addiction. And finally met a girl. We had a son, and I moved up to the western slope of Colorado to try to get away from the people, right? Do the geographic thing. If I just get out of the city and get a real job and start working, things should be okay. So we come up to a little town called Glenwood Springs. I'm about 40 miles from Aspen, Colorado. I get a job as a carpenter's helper. I get into some construction work. And I discover there's lots of cocaine up in Aspen, Colorado. Go figure. And in 96, I got my first cocaine case. I got a possession case. I write about it in my book. Got arrested, violated that probation 5 times, or I got a deferred sentence. It was my first felony case. And so took off from a halfway house, didn't stay sober. And finally the judge is like, look, you don't seem like a bad guy, but you leave me no alternative. You got to go to the state penitentiary. I got a 2.5-year prison sentence. At that time, we had 2 little boys. My kids were 2 and 4. And for me, and again, I write about it, that was just heartbreaking what I was doing to my sons, right? You don't realize the ramifications, the ripple effects your addiction is going to have on everybody else,
Absolutely.
Kind of fast forward from 1998 to 2011, I was in and out of prison 7 different times. And I never did more than a 2.5-year sentence straight. I'd get 2 years, I'd be out in 18 months, I'd get a year sentence, I'd get out, I'd go back for 1.5 years, I'd get out. It was just back and forth.
Yeah.
And by the time, I woke up in prison the 7th time, I'm 40 years old. And yet again, I'm about to get out of prison, broke and homeless. And all I wanted to do was reconnect and try to reestablish a relationship with my 2 sons that were, my oldest was about to graduate high school that year. And the little one was in 10th grade. And so it was the first time I was going to get out of prison that year. And I was off parole for the first time in like a decade. So I could move anywhere in the state that I wanted to. And so this is the first time, I went through this phase from like 2011 to 2018 of telling myself I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure out this recovery thing. But I was still trying to do it my way. And I can explain, I got out in 2011 and I got a room at a local hostel up here where my sons in Western Colorado, where my sons were in high school, just to try to reestablish a bond with them before it was too late. And they both liked boxing and they both liked working out. And that was kind of our common bond. We'd meet and go to the gym, which was pretty cool. And I started rebuilding a relationship with them. But, they're teenagers. They got cars, they got girlfriends. Here's Mr. Promises showing up yet again.
Right.
There's trust issues. So it wasn't all gravy right up front, but it was a start. And I stayed at a hostel and by the way, I was diagnosed. I told you I was diagnosed with bipolar and PTSD. So by the 7th time, the state of Colorado put me on SSI. They said he's too mentally disabled to work because of his mental health and because he's been out of the workforce for so long. So let's give him a check for $700 a month and some food stamps. But it enabled me to focus on me and my recovery at the time. It was enough money to pay, $35 a night for a cot in a hostel. And then I went to dually diagnosed groups twice a week at the local mental health treatment provider in this small community. And I went to individual counseling, and I went to AA, and I went to church. I was committed at the time to do whatever it takes, right? And I didn't want a relationship. I know they tell you don't have a relationship for the first year. Of course, I met this beautiful young lady. We got pregnant after 3 months of dating, and we've been together ever since. So she's my current wife, and we've got a beautiful 12-year-old son together. But that, it changed the trajectory of my focus of like, okay, I got a family. I don't want to be poor. I'm able to work. So I got back into the workforce. I also started training Krav Maga. I don't know if you're familiar with Krav Maga.
I'm not offhand, but I've heard of it, but I don't, you can explain it better. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was reading I didn't know what it was. I discovered the words in a book. I was reading a book about, the Mossad, Israeli Secret Service, and these words Krav Maga, and it was created by an Eastern European Jew, and it was the self-defense system for the Israeli Defense Forces. And, for me at the time, it was like a link back to my heritage. And just I needed a healthy outlet. So I went and I took a class when I was 40 years old, really when I was still broken homeless. I took my first class. I fell in love with it. The punching, the kicking, it's basically like a combative self-defense system. And when I moved up to the western slope of Colorado, there was no place to take classes and nobody was teaching it. And I
Right.
just thought if I could get certified, like I could be teaching a class up here. And so I found a out-of-state entity and I flew out and went to my first testing for instructor course, became an instructor. I started a small business called American Krav Maga and really started my first class so I'd have other people to train with so I could get to the next level, right? So I could try those moves on other people and then go test and then come back. I got my first black belt when I was 46, man. And
Phew, man, that's amazing.
that's what put me on, like, I didn't want to be on Facebook. I did a lot of dirt. I didn't, but my instructor's like, hey, if you want to start this business, the social media is the way to go. And so
Right.
I created a logo and a Facebook page. I was doing construction. I was teaching at a community center. And then I started getting hits and I started filming videos like in my backyard being like, hey, I've been to prison 7 times. If a guy like me can do this, you can do this too, and before I knew it, guys flying me out to New York, California, Montana.
Wow.
I was teaching this, and then I created like certificates, right? And I started teaching instructor courses, and like you don't have to be, they called me like an industry disruptor because these larger organizations, they wanted to charge me like $400 a month just to like use their name and their logo. And I needed to have a certain square footage for a gym, and I couldn't afford to buy it into a franchise. So I just started putting it out there. Like, you could teach in your garage, you could teach people, you could do women's self-defense seminars, like at a school or, there was a little market for that. I didn't get rich, but it was pretty cool.
Heck yeah, it's cool.
However,
Awesome.
however,
Okay.
I would fly out of town and then I would, it was like I was using when I would
Right.
go out of town.
I was gonna ask you flying to New York to across the country. I'm like, uh-oh, let's see how you
Yeah. And then it was like I could hide it from my wife or you
Mhm.
try to hide it. Then I started missing airplanes, right? Then I was too tweaked out to get on the plane, right? I didn't want to go to the airport, and no, she, to keep it real, because we're talking about like she had left me 3 times.
Right.
She wasn't into it. And so I'd cry for a week, beg her to come back. I'd go back to AA because in my small community, it was like AA or Celebrate Recovery. And there was really no other meetings. There was
Right.
no other like pathways to recovery. I didn't know of any.
Okay.
Um, but I was trying. So I'd get like 3 months clean. And then through Krav Maga, I wanted the tough guy thing. I wanted to get into the security business. Aspen's up the road and celebrities would come and they'd have live music venues. So now I'm a black belt in Krav Maga, although I've got felony convictions on my record. Nobody would hire me in the security field. Well, finally, one company, they needed a guy. They didn't care if you had felon. They needed somebody that was willing to get down if things jumped off.
Yeah.
And it only paid $13 an hour. This was like in 2014. And I said, I don't care about the money. I just need to build my resume. Like, give me an opportunity. It was like Roadhouse, man. We were like fighting every weekend. And I'm 46, I'm 45, 46 years old at the time. Like, I'm not a young guy.
Yeah.
But it was, I have to say, like, it was fun. Like, I liked the action. But as you probably know where this is going, if you're in recovery, working in the nightclub industry isn't the greatest place.
Nope.
So I started justifying, like, and by the way, I'm back on steroids in my 40s, and now I'm doing powder coke. I'm just doing like a gram a night because I need it to be sharp at work. And I'm going home and I'm not cheating on my wife and I'm not smoking crack. So it's okay. And I get it for free because I'm the guy, I'm the bouncer, right? So they give it to me, the
Right.
bar, whoever's selling it, right? So I had the addiction trap. Because now, in my mind, I'm living the dream, right? I can work out all week. I can train martial arts.
Hey, everyone, quick break to tell you about Recover. That's RCVR. If you're on this journey of recovery, you already know it's not just about quitting. It's about rebuilding. It's about self-discovery and reclaiming your best life. That's exactly why I created Recover, a lifestyle brand built for us, by us, those who have walked through the fire and come out stronger. Head over to recoverbrand.com. That's RCVRbrand.com to grab your Recover gear. We wear it as a daily reminder that you're not alone and that your story is just beginning. And because you're part of this community, use Recover20 for 20% off your first order. And wear your story, share the message, and end the stigma. Now back to the show.
I started going to different events and learning different martial arts, and I can just work 3 or 4 nights a week and make the same money that I'd be making if I was doing construction work.
Right.
But really, it was an excuse to do coke 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
And feed my ego. That was just killing me and destroying my relationship with my wife. So 2018, I'm at a venue and I did a bunch of coke one night, and I had major back pain, and I thought maybe I hurt myself, like doing deadlifts or lifting weights or something. And I started vomiting, and it lasted for like a couple of days, and I went to the doctor and they took my blood pressure and they're like, you're about to stroke out. Like, your blood pressure is over 200. And the next thing I know, I woke up in a hospital about 80 miles from my house. I guess they put me in an ambulance, and I had kidney failure, man. My kidney shut down. I had something that they call rhabdomyolysis. When you're extremely dehydrated, some extreme athletes get it and have died from it. I got it from cocaine toxicity.
Wow.
And so, when you talked about that moment, when you just asked God, like, to help you.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital for 6 days, and basically they're talking about, you might not walk out of here because your kidney's failing. You're going to, possibly need a transplant or dialysis. We'll just see if your kidney function comes back. And I'm like, well, in my mind, I'm like, when am I going home? And they're like, we don't know if you're going home.
Wow.
And so, day 1, no improvement. Day 2, day 3, day 4. Now I'm praying, and I didn't go into my faith-based religious experience, but I explored my faith, and I got into Christianity in prison and really studied the Bible quite a bit. But again, I wasn't willing to surrender my life to God, to my higher power. And when I was in the hospital, it's like he knew how to get my attention, My wife was devastated. I actually told her not to come visit me. Like, I told her, if this is it, I want you and my son to come down, but, let me just, because it was an hour drive to come see me, and it would only be an hour visit, and then they'd have to drive home. And she was pissed off at me, and I was depressed. But it was really lonely, man. And the reality of like, I might have just took my own life.
Yeah.
And I just prayed to God, if I walk out of here, I will serve you. I will do whatever you ask me to do. I've always wanted to help people. I knew I couldn't help anybody until I figured out how to help myself, right?
Sure, of course.
And so, by the grace of God, I walked out on the 6th day. My wife came down to pick me up. I quit my job at the nightclub. I cut off all my friends, that were into doing drugs.
Yeah.
I went back to AA, got a sponsor. And that was I used my faith as a barrier to go back to AA often too. Cause I was like, oh, this guy's higher power is the doorknob, or this guy, it's like, my faith teaches me not to judge, but I was judging everybody.
Right.
And I had the epiphany of like, here's God offering you all these people in recovery. Who cares what they believe in? And you might just find somebody that believes in the same God that you believe in if you just go to those rooms and put yourself out there. And go figure, day 1, I met another guy that was Christian, and
Shocking.
retired, lived in my town, was happy to pick me up every day and bring me to a meeting.
Amazing.
Bless his name, Bob, bless his heart, and helped save my life, man. And really, for the next 2 years, I just started volunteering. I taught Krav Maga part-time to make a little extra money. I was blessed. My wife worked full-time. I just told her, like, I need to serve. I need to be of service to save my own life. Like, I've got the rest of my life to try to earn a living, but right now I just need to focus on my recovery, or we won't have a family. I won't have a life. And bless my wife's heart, right?
Yes, sir.
Like, she's a pillar of strength. And I filled out a volunteer application at our local sheriff's department to see if I could go in and do Bible study with other men, just to share my experience with them. I'm talking like the first month, as soon as I got out of the hospital, I didn't even, and I had people in AA telling me it's too early, and, bless AA and the program. But I had people like telling me, like, you got to get a year under your belt. Like, you need at least a year before you can. And, my faith, my relationship with my higher power was telling me otherwise of if you relapse and you're a hypocrite, you'll pull yourself out, but you need to serve now. And so I went in and started doing Bible study with a small group of men in the medium pod in the county jail. And then they gave me the minimum pod, and then another jail about 60 miles away in Eagle County. I filled out an application for them. So I became a volunteer at that jail. So Thursdays I was in one jail, Fridays I was in another. And then I went to the parole office in our town and I said, hey, if you get a guy that gets out of prison and he needs a ride, to Walmart to get a pair of boots, or he needs to go, fill out an application for food stamps, if I'm available, I'll take him. Like, just call me, my old Volvo station wagon with the cracked windshield, and they were kind of skeptical of me. Like, who's this guy? They ran my record, it's several pages long. And, but, I share this often now with the guys in prison that I work with and in the community, like guys like us, we have to build like a new social resume, right? And through volunteering in my community, now I could get a letter from 2 different sheriff's departments. I could get a letter of support from parole officers for the work that I'm doing. And, so I just started building relationships, serving food to the homeless. So I started, Kings and Priests Ministry, which was a jail and street ministry. It's actually the name of my current nonprofit charitable organization, but it wasn't official. I didn't actually register with the IRS until 2020. In 2020, we had COVID. I wasn't allowed in the jail anymore. The AA meeting, like in person, was shut down. Everything was shut down. I had guys calling me that were getting out of jail, that needed support. And there's nowhere to even get a sandwich. There's no recovery. I was introduced to the whole concept of recovery coaching, through a friend. And I did my first recovery coach training. And that really opened up my eyes to the concept of multiple pathways of recovery, right? And what worked for me might not necessarily work for you. I can share my lived experience, but our job as a recovery coach is really to help you find your pathway. And I just love that. I just love the essence of it. And so I got certified as a recovery coach. And when I started getting these calls, it was about like in the spring, really, it was just mounting up more and more, where I was just seeing the need to fill some type of void in our community. And I just thought, I'm going to go rent a building and we're going to have meetings and I'm going to hand out sandwiches. And if the health department wants us to wear masks and have hand sanitizer, or like whatever, like how much is it to rent a building? I found like an old building in this small, this is a small rural community, Rifle, Colorado. Landlord was happy to rent it. Things were going out of business. Now, of course, I have no experience running a nonprofit. I don't know anything about zoning. The landlord was happy to take my money. I'm in there with the roller, painting the walls, and I call the newspaper up. Hey, we're going to open this peer recovery community organization, and can we do an article? And I'm going to get a crock pot, and I'm going to serve sandwiches. I don't know that I need to like call the health department or anything like that, right? I'm just going to do this thing. And I'm putting it on Facebook. I remember getting my first donation for $250. I just couldn't believe that somebody believed in me and wanted to donate. I still got the Volvo station wagon with the broken windshield. I'm buying paint. No one's putting gas in my car. But I found this organization, told me to apply for a grant. I have no experience writing grants, and they worked with me. I actually got a scholarship through this organization, and I got my first grant for $50,000.
And this is 2020?
So they told me actually, they awarded us $100,000, $50,000 a year for the first 2 years. They told me in October of 2020, because I already started doing the work.
Right.
Like, I didn't say like, hey, I got this idea. I'm doing this. Well, I need to back up a little bit. I was in there painting the walls. I said, I'm doing this. They told me we'd get a grant, but we wouldn't get the money until after January, until the new year of 2021.
Okay.
So in my mind, I thought, man, if I could make $500 a week, right? If I could pay my phone bill, pay my car insurance, contribute a little to my family, because I wasn't really making anything at that time. So $500 a week, that's $26,000 a year. And then rent's $1,000 a month. That's another 12 grand, right? So now what? We're at 36 I just did the math. I just did a real simple budget, 5,000 for food. Like, I got this, right? I can do this.
Yeah.
So, oh no, I was ecstatic. The other business owners in the community found out, because I had a plumber go down. We had to put a special drain in to wash dishes as per the health department. So he applied for a permit. The city is like, what's going in there? Who's this guy? And so they put pressure on the landlord. It was my first experience of, not in my backyard. They just heard felons, drug addicts, homeless people. And, I had some conversations with them. I said, it's not like I'm bringing, these people are already here.
Yeah.
Nobody's serving them. I told them we'll be open, at 8 in the morning, and I'll close at 3 in the afternoon. I'll have lights out front, no loitering. I have an experience in security. Like your block's probably safer with me on it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to run a tight ship. I worked really hard to get to where I'm at. And, but the landlord, he caved to the pressure of the neighbors, dropped me from the lease. The newspaper article still came out. And, it was like recovery, center plans on hold. And then, they basically I thought they made me look kind of stupid. I didn't go to the city to get permits. And it's interesting. That was another lesson learned of talking to the media. And you could talk for an hour, and then what they pick and choose to kind of quote that you said.
Right. Yeah. Nasty stuff, right? Yeah.
It was interesting. But check this out, right? God had a plan. So the next day, the paper comes out, and I get a call from the dean of the local Colorado Mountain College. They have a small campus in Rifle. Campus is basically shut down because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, do you want to lease the classroom from us? I don't know if it'll work, but come check out the building. They have a full gymnasium, weight room, computer lab.
Yeah.
They have maintenance guys to clean the toilet gets clogged. It's taken care of. They charged me like $800 a month rent. And we were open 4 days a week. And we started what we called like an all recovery. I call it a discovery group. We called the place Discovery Cafe, a sanctuary of new beginnings.
Yep.
To serve the homeless, the addicted, anybody that experienced any kind of trauma. If you just needed a safe place to go and have a conversation, like, we were just there to let you know that someone in the community loved you. We weren't pushing a religious agenda, because that used to be a barrier for me. So I'm glad that I had that perspective, Yeah, we started a yoga class. We did have a Bible study if you wanted to attend, but it wasn't mandatory. We had AA meeting come in to our space. We served lunch, and everything was free. We didn't bill Medicaid. We didn't,
kidding me. Wow.
we weren't like chasing like the dollar. It was just like, hey, we're open.
So
come in,
you're
have a
you're really
conversation.
still just you're serving your people. You know, you mentioned people, guys getting out of jail, and you even talked about yourself. I mean, you've done it
Yeah.
how many times? Been right, you walking out
7
with a
times.
piece of paper 7 times. Nobody knows that feeling better than you do.
Yeah.
Hear it all the time. People, we help ourselves of where we were. Like, and that's where you
I
are.
love
You're
it, man.
helping Gabe 7 times prior. You're helping that person, over and over and over again. And I love how it seems like this whole path you're following, what your higher power is telling you where to go, and you're just kind of along for this ride. But you got a lot of enterprise in you too, man. You're a smart dude. You know how to
Thanks, man.
work the phones, and I think it's amazing getting the word out and doing what you're doing. I want to hear where it is today, but I want to hear where do you go from here to writing this book. I want to hear about that too.
Sure. Thanks. There's a lot there. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so grateful.
I'm
But
grateful, yeah, man. I'm grateful to connect with you.
I love what you just shared, because I say it a lot, especially in the prison system. We were just serving. So we introduced our Discovery Cafe model in our small rural community, right?
Mhm.
And then I went back to the county jail where I was doing the Bible study and said, hey, we have these discovery groups. We introduced the model. So we've been in the county jail for the last couple years doing it there. And that way I could have conversations, build relationships in the jail. And the day they get out, they can come to our space and get connected, right? And so we know all the local community partners, the temp agencies or where to get your driver's license, right? And I always say, like, who better to help men and women like us than men and women like us? Like, I've
Yeah.
literally been in your shoes,
Yeah.
you know? And so from there, here's another thing. I reestablished, I had a heart to heart with that reporter, man, who I thought it was a
Yeah.
little, I didn't like his angle in the original article. And I shared that with him with love, from a place of love and respect.
Uh-huh.
And then I found out he had his own experience and like he was just doing his job as a reporter, but he really valued the work I was doing after I got to know him. He wrote a very kind article and I had a guy that just got out. So there's a small minimum prison in Rifle as well, 8 miles outside of town. I'd never been there personally, but it's part of the Colorado Department of Corrections. It's part of the state prison system. Well, we had one of their guys highlighted in the article that had gotten out of that prison, who I worked with. I helped him get certified as a recovery coach. We hired him to help us in our model. And so the case managers in the prison saw the article. They invited me in to do a presentation, and that opened up the door into the prison system. So I started doing groups. I started running 6 groups in this prison myself. We applied for another grant. I got funding to help support the prison program. And then at the time, they had like a work release program, right? Where guys were going out of the prison and working for companies in the community, being able to get a paycheck and bank it. They'd have to go back to prison though, like in the evening. And so I thought, like, wouldn't it be awesome if we train these guys as recovery coaches, train them to facilitate our groups, now we have something called Discovery Lab. So we have like a 6-week class module on like setting healthy boundaries or reentry into the community,
Yeah.
fitness and recovery. Like we just brainstormed and kind of created curriculum.
Right.
I applied for a grant to the Office of Behavioral Health a couple of years ago. It actually just ended June 30th. But I said, wouldn't it be great if we could pay these guys minimum wage, pay them $14 an hour? If I could secure funding, train them, have them facilitate the model, then I could go to another prison, find new talent, new guys that are all in for recovery, run groups, get them trained, and then boom, boom, right? I got the grant. Now I needed to get approval from DOC to actually do it. I just wanted to see if I could get the money first. I didn't
Right.
have their permission yet, but I thought, what? How could they say no, right?
Really? How could they?
So, anyways,
That's where you are with that. You're waiting on permission from DOC.
no, that happened a couple years ago. That grant was for like over 400, it was like $460,000 from the Office of Behavioral Health. And so we grew our model into a total of 5 prisons.
All
I
in
was
Colorado,
employing
correct?
in Colorado. At one time I had 13 inmates making minimum wage, facilitating groups and teaching classes in the prison system.
Wow.
And I've since that funding just ran out. So now I'm in one prison. I got a contract now from DOC. They have a tight budget this year, but I'm in one prison. I'm still doing our model. During this time, I was able to purchase a couple of houses. So I have 2 sober living houses for justice involved men. I got 9 guys living in the house right now. We're putting a 1-bedroom addition on one of the houses as we speak. And I wanted to tell the story of the lessons I learned, the book I wish I had 5 years ago.
Amazing.
And really, it tells a little bit about my story, right? To give it context, why I do what I do. But it's not really so much about my recovery experience as it's kind of a culmination of the two. It's really about my new lived experience of starting a recovery community organization with no experience. And if a guy like me could do it, you can do it too. Right.
That's amazing. The book, we can get that book on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's available on Amazon. And listen, I didn't get rich doing this, but I did figure out how to make a living doing it.
God bless you.
My wife has worked for me for the past year and a half. She became our operations manager.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been great, man. Just being of service, and it really gives meaning to the wreckage of my past,
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
be able to give back.
It's your lived experience, as we said at the beginning. It's, it's who you are. But again, I'm repeat myself. You're helping young Gabe, but now you're doing it at scale, and now you just wrote a book, which I think is incredible. Sober living homes. I mean, I'm just again, your story is incredible. You're an amazing, passionate dude that gets things done, and I can't wait to see what's ahead. What you have the book, and I'll have this all in the show notes too. Where can we find you on your socials, and what
Sure.
is in the future for Gabe?
So this is available on Amazon. Please, if you get it, please just leave a review. I think it helps with book sales. You can go to the Peer Recovery Expert is my Instagram page. I have a Facebook page. You can check out Discovery Cafe. discoverycafe.org is our Peer Recovery Community Center website. My business website for my book is actually gabecohen.me. It's gabecohen.me. So you can learn about the book. You can learn about Discovery Cafe on my business page. When you talk about the future, what I would love to do is help other people that have a dream or desire to be of service, to make it happen, like to inspire hope. And also, I've had some people that don't have the same lived experience, that have family members, though, that might be incarcerated or that are struggling. They read the book and they just told me it was very insightful to help them understand their loved ones. I spoke from the heart in the book. I would really just love to consult with people and help them get their ventures off the ground. So if anyone has any questions, I'm easy to find. Just Google me, shoot me an email, call me up. Let's have a conversation.
Fantastic. We'll have all that in the show notes too, so they can find all those links to find you. One last final question, and it's been a real pleasure having you on here tonight. I'm glad to connect. We're going to have to do this again because I'm looking forward to seeing what the future brings for you. It's exciting stuff, and it's really all beautiful stuff, and it's God's work, and it's serving our community. It's really incredible, man. So grateful you're here. I mean that. But one final question is, if you bumped into your younger self, and you're walking down the street and you see young Gabe, maybe, I don't know, maybe 19 years old, right when things were really going off the rails for you. What's the one piece of advice you're leaving for your younger self?
Choose wisely. because you're worth it. Because you're worth it. And, your past doesn't have to define your future. Choices that we make today will define our future, and invest in your future self because you're worth it.
You're worth it. Amen. What a perfect way to close. Gabe, it's been a pleasure having you on. Again, I can't wait to follow you and see what the future brings. Everyone, go check out the book. Go check out all of his links and hit him up if you need to talk to him. So, Gabe, thanks so much for being here. We'll talk soon, bud.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. God bless, brother. Thank you for listening to the Begin Again podcast. If today's story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that healing is possible, I'd love for you to share it. Subscribe, leave a review, and help us spread the message that no one is too far gone to begin again. And if you're ready to wear your recovery with pride, visit us at recoverbrand.com. That's RCVRbrand.com. And until next time, take your power back.